Our planet is one big mystery. When and how it appeared is still unknown. How many peoples and civilizations have lived on it is also unclear. Where many of them disappeared to is a completely rhetorical question. This video shows archaeological discoveries still worth studying. Hello, my friend? You're on the Kurtop channel. To be continued, a ring with the oldest image of Christ. The Israel Antiquities Authority conducted an archaeological study of the remains of two ancient sunken ships. One dates to the late Roman period, about 1,700 years ago, and the other to the Mamluk period, around 600 years ago. Many artifacts were found at the Caesarea shipwreck site, but one stands out: a gold ring with a green stone inlaid, carved with a shepherd boy carrying a lamb on his shoulders. Jesus, the Good Shepherd. Judging by its size, the ring belonged to a woman. Employees of the Israel Antiquities Authority called it a very rare find. The ship sank at the port entrance and now rests just 4 meters deep. Archaeologists found over 500 Mamluk-era silver coins and hundreds of ancient Roman bronze and silver coins on the seabed. Also figurines shaped like an eagle and a comic masked actor. In addition, bronze nails, a damaged iron anchor, lead pipes, ceramics, and bronze bells that were meant to ward off evil spirits were found. But the octagonal gold ring with the image of the Good Shepherd is considered the most exquisite artifact in this collection. According to the New Testament, it was in Caesarea, where one of the first Christian communities was located, that the Apostle Piotr baptized the Roman centurion Cornelius, and this was the first time a non-Jew became a Christian. This can be called the beginning of the spread of Christianity. The ancient repository of Tibetan scrolls. In Tibet, 180 kilometers from Everest, at an altitude of 4,300 meters there, is the ancient Sakya Monastery. In 2003, it became widely known to the public, thanks to an amazing discovery. Archaeologists found an ancient cache of handwritten texts, literally sealed within a monastery wall. The monastery itself was founded in 1073 by Konchog Gyalpo, a monk from an ancient influential family who was one of the 7 Tibetans to be ordained as Buddhist monks. It was the abbots of this monastery who ruled Tibet until the 13th century under the patronage of the Mongol Yuan dynasty. Accordingly, Sakya became the administrative center of Tibet, and the local Buddhist tradition became the dominant one in Tibet. This continued until 1959, when China seized Tibet, and the abbot of the monastery was forced to flee to India, where he built a monastery in the city of Dehradun and became its abbot. But let's go back to Sakya. The monastery houses a unique library of ancient handwritten books with beautiful manuscripts, most of which are dedicated to Buddhism. In 2003, a group of researchers, to their surprise, discovered a huge sealed storage of ancient scrolls and books inside one of the monastery walls. The storage is impressive, with a wall roughly 18 meters long and 3 meters high. It was literally packed with ancient texts. Some were stored as scrolls and others as books. In addition, a large number of texts were kept in cases. Chinese researchers are still working on the manuscripts from the cache. It is known that the number of hidden manuscripts and scrolls is about 84,000. They are dedicated to Buddhism, history, astronomy, mathematics, and the arts. Some religious texts are written with ink containing gold and silver, and mostly belong to the Yuan and Ming periods. Some particularly valuable manuscripts were created during Khan Kublai's 13th century era. As for the library and the monastery in general, a huge number of monuments are collected here, containing priceless information on history, chronology, geography, medicine, and so on. They're all stored on the shelves in the massive Lakan Chenpo Hall, creating an epic scene. By the way, it is here that a unique ancient cannon weighing about 500 kilograms is kept, which is considered the largest and heaviest in the world, the mysterious aqueduct Chinglo de Miraflores. When I saw this beauty, my mouth literally dropped open. Could craftsmen really build this with only hammers and chisels? Who lived there then? Judging by the size of the structure, of which only this part of the wall remains, it's clear that there must have been excavators and multi-ton trucks involved. There's hardly any information about this place, even on Spanish websites. The stone slabs you see in the photos were were part of an aqueduct belonging to the old Soto del Puente Canal in an area known as Singlo de Masatrigos. Masatrigos is a cool place next to which the Guadalope River flows, carving out profiles and exposing the colorful rocks that make up this area. Red, garnet, gray, or beige. These are some of the shades shown by the different geological layers that the waters eroded during the Tertiary and Quaternary periods. Armor bicycle. In May 2008, Bristol University archaeologists excavating Chateau Gaillard found iron objects 2.5 meters deep that formed warriors' protective armor. Nearby, the archaeologists discovered a second burial, a well-preserved horse skeleton. Coins of denier tournois, minted by Philip II Augustus, and coins from the Duchy of Aquitaine were found at the excavation, helping date the armor to before Richard the Lionheart. The unusual aspect was how the iron armor fragments were arranged. They looked like a bicycle outline from above. Imagine the archaeologists' astonishment when, after carefully extracting the fragments and cleaning off centuries-old layers of soil, they were able to examine them in detail. These were parts of a knight's bicycle that had been in the ground for nearly 9 centuries. During the Hallstatt period, basic ironworking skills emerged in Europe, including some early attempts to produce steel blades by carburizing iron. In the subsequent Latin era, the technology of steel production was fully mastered, including rather complex methods for producing welded parts with a high-quality surface resistant to friction. Metallographic analysis and microscopic examination of polished iron parts show that the main structural components of this unusual medieval bicycle are steel. As can be seen, the recipes for making steel products practically passed through the entire Roman period without significant changes, and had a certain influence on the level of blacksmithing in early medieval Europe. Gradually, scientists reconstructed the look of an unusual knight-era vehicle, a dinosaur egg with an embryo. In 2010, while renovating the Yingliang Stone Nature History Museum in Guangzhou, southeast China, staff sorting collections found fossilized dinosaur eggs. These discoveries are common, but many are poorly preserved. Scientists closely examined some specimens and found an embryo skeleton inside one of the eggs. The material was collected in 2000 during Southeast China excavations and stored in the museum's collection since then. A 16.7 cm egg contains an Oviraptorosaurus embryo. These theropod dinosaurs lived during the Cretaceous period in what is now Asia and the American continents. They had feathered bodies, toothless mouths, and jaws covered by a horny sheath called a rhamphotheca. The find is estimated to be 66-72 million years old and was named Baby Inlian. The embryo measures 27 centimeters long. The dinosaur likely had just days left before hatching but died, possibly from a landslide. The embryo's position is distinctive. Hind limbs are on the sides, the head rests against the front, and the back curves along the egg's blunt end. This pose is very similar to that of modern bird embryos before hatching. The chick tucks its head under its forelimb. This suggests that certain developmental patterns and features seen in modern birds had already emerged in ancient forms like Oviraptorosaurs. Currently, the study of the find continues using modern scanning and visualization tools. To be continued. The ancient city described by Homer. Archaeologists found remains of a Hellenistic sanctuary with an inscription linked to the city in Homer's Iliad. According to the Greek Ministry of Culture, excavations were carried out near the port of Agiocampos. A team of scientists found a Hellenistic-era structure made from alabaster and local stone. The find dates to the 3rd-2nd century before Christ. The site is located at the foot of Mount Mavrovuni, stretching to the rocky shores of the northern Aegean Sea. The team found various architectural elements, such as an entablature above the colonnade, 5 Doric capitals, a statue base, column parts, a marble leg, benches, and 2 marble children's heads. Other discoveries included iron nails, arrowheads, Thessalian and Macedonian bronze coins, bronze rings, clay lamps, drinking vessels, and amphora fragments. Scientists also found tiles bearing ceramic shop owners' names. At the same time, the most remarkable find was a tile with an inscription that may be connected to Miliboja, a city and polis in ancient times. Archaeologists believe that they have discovered the ancient city of Miliboja, which was mentioned by Homer in the second song of the Iliad, in the so-called Catalogue of Ships. In this passage of his work, the poet listed all the Greek cities that took part in the campaign against Troy during the reign of Agamemnon. This city was also mentioned by other ancient Greek writers in later works. However, information about its exact location is currently lacking. House of the Golden Bracelet. These ancient Roman hills buried in the 79 AD volcanic eruption have given scientists valuable insights into first-century Roman life. The House of the Golden Bracelet is a real multi-story city villa with many rooms, panoramic terraces overlooking the sea, a garden, a vineyard, and wonderfully expensive finishes. Much of this beautiful decoration remains today, despite the disaster. Frescoes, mosaics, marble inlays, terracotta reliefs, and other finds. Some frescoes crumbled within a month. Plaster fell off the walls, requiring restorers to work hard to restore their original look. The house was likely damaged in the earthquake 17 years before Vesuvius erupted, and some rooms remained under repair for years. Archaeologists' saddest discovery on this estate was the remains of a group, 2 adults and 2 small children. With the help of plaster, it was possible to restore the volume of their bodies at the moment of death. An adult wore a heavy gold bracelet weighing up to 610 grams. The basis of its design was a fairly common motif in ancient Roman jewelry art, 2 snake heads facing each other. In our case, they are holding a head in their mouths. A large disc shows the moon goddess Selene holding a crescent above her head, with stars decorating the space between its ends. Archaeologists named the entire house after this bracelet. Discovered in 1974, in its honor, the ornament indicates the high social status of the woman it belonged to, but that's not all. A box with a substantial amount of money, a stack of gold ore and 180 silver denarii. And according to archaeologists, for 20 denarii, a family of 3 could eat in Pompeii for an entire week. People remained forever in the corridor that leads from the house to the garden, that is, to salvation, or so they thought. They decided to leave the building too late. The House of the Golden Bracelet's residents died when the upper floor balcony collapsed. Because it's often hard to tell a deceased Pompeian's gender from casts, 50 years ago they started identifying anyone with a bracelet as a woman. The group was seen as a family, father, mother, and 2 children. But now there is reason to believe that none of these people were related to each other. There are 2 men, 1 older and 1 younger, plus 2 boys aged about 5 or 6 and 3. Research on these casts continues, and perhaps new discoveries await us. Mount Kailas and its mysteries. Mount Kailas, or Kailash, is located in the southern part of the Tibetan Plateau in the Trans-Himalaya Range and is territorially part of China. In Tibetan, Kailas means precious jewel of the snows. Kailas is the highest part of this mountain system. Its height is 6,638 meters above sea level. Although the data may vary, the difference is just a few dozen meters. 4 of the largest rivers of the Indian subcontinent originate from the slopes of Mount Kailas. The tributaries of the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, and the Karnali, as well as the Indus and its tributary, the Sutlej. The mountain's altitude and remoteness make exploration difficult. Very little is still known about Kailas, but this mountain holds many mysteries and unconfirmed theories that are waiting for their time. Numerous attempts to conquer the very summit of the mountain have ended in failure. No one has managed to do it so far. Chinese authorities, the United Nations, and the Dalai Lama denied permission for expeditions. Pilgrims protested and blocked access. Its appearance is already mysterious. The faces of Mount Kailash are aligned with the 4 cardinal directions, and some scientists believe that it is an ancient pyramid with smaller mountains adjoining it to form an entire system. Geologists believe its pyramid shape formed over thousands of years from wind and water erosion, and that the mountain rose from the ocean due to movement and collision of Earth's crust. The cracks on the mountain's southern side form a swastika, a Buddhist symbol of divine power and perfection. It is possible that such cracks could have formed as a result of an earthquake. It's a place where incredible miracles happen. It looks as if someone did this intentionally for their own secret reasons. Some believe Mount Kailash, one of the oldest civilizations, is surrounded by myths and legends. This is a renowned pilgrimage site for Hindus, who believe Shiva resides on Kailash, and for Buddhists, who see it as Buddha's palace. Many believe the mountain is hollow and the enlightened ones have taken refuge there. To complete a full circuit, you must cover 53 meters. The valley at the base. Kara is a pilgrimage that began with Tibetan monks. Completing the Karua once in a lifetime frees a person from karma and all their sins, bringing peace about their next incarnation. He'll be lucky in his next life. Visitors to Mount Kailash say time there seems to stop. The concentration of powerful energy there can truly push a person to realize the meaning of life, helps them to know themselves, and almost feels like it recharges their inner batteries. Mass poisoning by Artuch in ancient times. University of Seville researchers examined historical cases of mass poisoning by Artuch. Today, liquid metal is seen as one of the world's most dangerous substances due to its harmful vapors. But our ancestors didn't know this. A group of specialists led by Steven Emsley analyzed 370 ancient burials at 23 sites in Spain and Portugal. The data spans 5,000 years from the Neolithic to ancient times. A few poisonings happened in the Bronze Age when people widely used cinnabar ore, mercury sulfide, which produces a bright red powder when ground. Historically, cinnabar was used as a paint pigment. It covered decorative objects, ritual tools, the deceased, and was worn in hair. Scientists found mercury at 400 parts per million, far above the usual 2, due to this storage. Archaeologists believe these people may have inhaled mercury vapors or consumed cinnabar for esoteric reasons before dying. 500-year-old bones on sticks. Hundreds of years ago, the indigenous people of the coastal regions of modern-day Peru collected the remains of their dead from desecrated graves and placed them on sticks. Scientists found almost 200 sticks in stone tombs in the Chincha culture valley. Archaeologists suggest that the Spanish who looted these graves are to blame for the emergence of this practice. In an attempt to somehow restore the integrity of their ancestors' remains, the indigenous people threaded them onto such sticks. In total, archaeologists studied 664 graves at 44 cemeteries, spread over an area of 40 square kilometers in the Chincha Valley. They found 193 vertebrae sticks. They were able to determine their age by the radioactive carbon in the bones and wood. Radioactive carbon accumulates in the body during life, and after death, it decays into nitrogen at a known rate. By the amount of remaining radioactive carbon, it's possible to find out when the organism died. The analysis showed that the vertebrae and sticks date back to 1,450 to 1,650 during the period of the collapse of the Inca Empire and the takeover by European colonizers. Scientists found most restored burials in large stone tombs called chupas, where multiple people were usually buried together. In one tomb, they counted remains of hundreds. During its height from 1,000 to 1,400, the Kingdom of Chincha had about 30,000 people. By the late 15th century, it merged with the Inca Empire. European arrival led to famine and epidemics that sharply reduced the population. In 1583, only 979 houses remained. From European documents, it is known that the Spanish often plundered the Chincha tombs, collecting golden artifacts and destroying the remains. A dragon statue with a tiger's head. Chinese archaeologists excavating the legendary Sanxingdui ruins in Sichuan province found a unique bronze statue of a divine beast, a dragon with a tiger's head and dragon horns. The bronze statue's front limbs rest on a triangular copper bracket, with the rear extending upward. Archaeologists discovered the statue in December 2021, but chose to announce it on the eve of the Chinese New Year, which is the year of the tiger in the Eastern calendar. It is reported that the body of the bronze deity has not yet been fully excavated. Due to lack of time and heavy workloads, the specialists chose to conduct another full excavation of this artifact in March 2022. It is already known that the artifact dates back to the Shang dynasty, which existed in the territory of China from the 16th to the 11th centuries before Christ. According to scientists, the bronze statue of the half-dragon, half-tiger was most likely either a religious object used in rituals or a symbol or totem of some unknown influential clan. More details will be available after the excavations finish and the sculpture is studied in the laboratory. The mysterious woman is 300 years older than Ötzi. Austrian scientists re-examined the remains of an individual discovered back in 1909 near Graz and found that they belonged to an elderly woman who died at the age of over 50. These are the oldest human remains discovered in Styria, which are about 300 years older than Ötzi, who was found nearby. The study of her bones showed that she often went hungry during her life, and after her death, it appears that her head was cut off. During the late Neolithic and Chalcolithic periods, around 4,900–3,400 before Christ, in Central Europe, in the territory of present-day Hungary, Slovakia, Czechia, Austria, Slovenia, and Poland, the archaeological culture of Lengyel was formed, which is named after the burial site of the same name, excavated back in the late 19th century. This period is marked mainly by the development of copper processing, shown by jewelry finds among the Lengyel culture. These mainly agricultural people preferred living in large fortified settlements linked to their burial sites. Most burials use the inhumation rite with bodies in a crouched side position. Men were often buried without skulls. Scientists noted that this was a rather sturdy, short woman who died at an advanced age of about 53 years. The bone study showed the woman had well-developed muscles, likely from carrying heavy loads long distances. The remains also show evidence of multiple periods of malnutrition, which led to a high susceptibility to diseases. Her short stature of about 147 millimeters was apparently due to nutrient deficiency. Researchers found signs of manipulation on her skull. Thus, the woman had an enlarged foramen magnum created by incisions, and the condyles were also removed. Traces of intervention are also visible on her first and second cervical vertebrae. Scientists think her skull was separated from the vertebrae with a flint knife soon after death. According to the investigator, it is difficult to judge the reasons for such behavior. This may have been part of a burial ritual, an effort to extract the brain, or to obtain a trophy. Gold embroidery fragments found in the Arctic. Two men scientists discovered fragments of 17th century gold embroidery during Arctic excavations, the first such find in Russia. Early examples of such gold embroidery and men's outerwear were known only from engravings. The Arctic climate preserved the items. After studying the find, scientists concluded that the gold threads consist of a silk core made up of 200–300 silk strands wrapped with strips of foil. Threads were made in Western Europe, but Russian artisans crafted the clothing. The finds have survived to this day thanks to the conditions of the Arctic zone, permafrost, and special soil processes. Gold-embroidered clothes may have been given to the Selkup as payment for serving the Tsar. No Russian museum has similar finds. The remains of the gold embroidery are planned to be exhibited at the Salikard Museum. The remains of the royal garments are in Israel. Researchers from Israel, while conducting excavations in the Timna Valley, discovered remnants of woven fabric, a tassel, and wool fibers dyed in the so-called royal purple. The fabric's shade matched biblical descriptions of the purple garments worn by King Solomon and other rulers. According to the scientists, they had the opportunity to take a glimpse into the wardrobe of biblical kings. The purple dye had a vibrant color and was long-lasting, but it was extremely difficult to obtain, which made it very expensive and available only to a select few. Radiocarbon dating shows the findings are from around 1000 before Christ, the era of the biblical kingdoms of David and Solomon in Jerusalem. At that time, purple dye was made from mollusks found in the Mediterranean Sea. According to historians, it was even more expensive than gold. Scientists reported this is the first Iron Age purple fabric found in Israel and the southern Levant. Previously, only shell mollusk and painted pottery waste had been found, suggesting a purple dye industry. The fabric was preserved in the valley thanks to its extremely dry climate. The mystery of the Luristan bronze figurines. At the end of the 1920s, the antique market was flooded with exquisite bronze figurines. These were images of people and animals, bronze cups with embossing and elegant pins. They delighted connoisseurs of antiquity. However, little was known about the origin of these figurines. Dealers only indicated a region in the mountains, Luristan. At the same time, no information was provided about the civilization, the time period, or the exact place of their origin. The figurines began to spread in 1928 when a local farmer in the town of Karsin, about 30 kilometers east of Kermanshah, discovered them in his fields. Word about them quickly spread among both scholars and local residents, who soon began excavations. Meanwhile, traders flocked to the town, buying artworks to resell to museums and collectors. The first Western archaeologist to study the bronze figurines was the German-born scholar Erich Schmidt, who began researching Luristan in 1935. On the advice of his wife, Mary Helen, the scholars used an airplane to survey the area. Thus, Luristan and other Iranian sites, including Persipal, were initially studied from above. Aerial photography was valuable for both site research and archaeology overall. It later became widely used worldwide by archaeologists and remains in use today. Besides aerial photography, scientists now use laser mapping as well. Although unauthorized excavations began in the late 1920s, Erich Schmidt's team still discovered many bronze, ivory, and ceramic artifacts. All the items were similar to those that had been found earlier. Most of the research work in Cirque Dum was focused around a multi-chambered structure, which was believed to be a temple or a local place of worship. In addition, archaeologists also found many items in the tombs. The civilization that created these artifacts still remains a mystery. Candidates include the early Medes, an Indo-European group from this region. Some scholars believe the figurines were made by the Sumerians, nomads from southern Russia who may have migrated to Luristan in the 8th century before Christ. Cuneiform inscriptions on swords found in this region suggest that the artifacts were made by the Kassites, a people who settled in Luristan around the 16th century before Christ. Until the early 12th century before Christ, they occupied central and southern Mesopotamia. As for the figurines themselves, many of them depicted men and women. Many animal figurines were found, including large cats, birds of prey, and mythological creatures like griffins and sphinxes. This motif is characteristic of many ancient civilizations. It is believed to symbolize man's dominance over nature. A millennia-old time capsule. I want to show you an ancient underwater site that you probably never heard of. This place is called Cheyenne Cave, which is probably the largest underwater quarry on the planet. Inside the cave, traces of machinery and other evidence suggest it was made by an unknown civilization. And since it's flooded with water inside, it has managed to avoid natural weathering. Thus, this cave is a time capsule with pure water. The cave is located in China, near the South Sea. In fact, this mountain is not a mountain at all, but an extinct volcano over 80 million years old. The entrance to the cave is quite modest, but once you go inside, you'll see a hall that can hold 1,000 people. At the end of the hall, artificial caves are flooded with water. The mountain sits 100 meters above sea level, entirely within an extinct volcano. It was only in 2009 that a group of divers decided to find this out. Their research showed that the cave has an area of at least 60 meters. Underwater, they discovered countless steps leading to the lower chambers. Following the steps, the divers discovered stacked stone slabs, which were obviously remnants of ancient mining. Their appearance resembles the paving slabs of ancient China. The divers were able to map the cave. The divers also discovered various bowls, lampstands, and bamboo ladders. The walls of the caves are covered with silt, but underneath it, the divers were able to find traces of tools. Similar marks are visible in the Yanshai and Babai quarries. By the way, scientists still don't know how these marks were made. It's impossible to make them with hand tools. Since the cave was rediscovered not so long ago, we can be sure that these traces appeared there thousands of years ago. Researchers suggest that ancient Chinese people discovered these caves thousands of years ago and used them as a quarry. They also didn't work at the maximum depth, as shown by finds like lamps and tools. Transporting finished thin slabs would have been very difficult, as shown by the roughly made cobblestone staircases. At the same time, traces of complex standardized tools can be found everywhere on the walls. This suggests that completely different types of labor were working in these mines. This leads to the idea that this structure is a megalithic construction created by an unknown civilization that dominated the earth thousands of years ago. Rama's bow and missiles. Rama is the main character of the ancient epic Ramayana, who is always depicted with a bow and arrows. According to legends, he never missed, and his arrows could pass through several targets at once. For example, in this image, his arrow passes through 7 trees. Ancient sculptors typically showed people with basic bows, but Rama's bow and army always featured unique details. Archers on the walls of Rama Chinokesova are shown marching beside regular infantrymen in simple clothing, with bows featuring wheels. It's impressive that modern bows still use similar pulleys, reportedly invented around 50 years ago. But the temple walls clearly show that the ancients were using this technology 1,000 years ago. Of course, some expert will come along and say these are just decorations, flowers. But why would soldiers decorate their weapons? Did Rama really just need rollers on his bow to pierce 7 trees? Now look at their arrows. Everyone knows that an arrow should be thin and long to penetrate, but the arrows we see in these images look more like rockets. The arrowhead looks like there's something inside it, and it doesn't look like a simple pointed tip at all. Remember the movie Rambo? A guy on YouTube showed how easy it is to attach explosives to an arrow. Legends about Rama claim these are rocket arrows, not ordinary ones. They say that the area where the arrow landed was destroyed, and his enemies exploded, leaving behind only soot. It's impossible to know if Rama and his soldiers truly had such advanced technology. However, we can judge ancient people by their carved figurines, and we can confidently say that they were incredible builders, surpassing even those of today. So, this suggests ancient people's weapons may have been more complex than historians claim. An ancient mask made of a strange substance, executive, Lexol Noi creative. Recently, sensational news spread worldwide about mysterious artifacts found off Florida's coast. Their age was clear, but their origin was unknown. Scientists obtained 7 items in total. All of them are made from a material that is almost never found on Earth. Iridium. Of course, this item was created by human hands and under entirely earthly conditions. The fact is that iridium is found in large quantities in fallen meteorites. Ancient people saw a heavenly sign, pursued it, and after finding the precious stone, started making cult objects. Analysis found the artifacts are at least 12 years old. Given that iridium is extremely hard and refractory, we may need to reassess the state of metallurgy. The ancient Incas are believed to be the ones to whom these items belonged. Personally, I have no doubt that ancient civilizations possessed extraordinary knowledge in areas that modern humanity has yet to master. Therefore, there is no doubt that craftsmen 12,000 years ago were able to create these masterpieces. The most interest was sparked by the mask of the god Viracocha. Its thickness is only 1.7 imprimeter, yet it features an image of the great deity and various cult symbols. This artifact suggests the late Inca culture was much poorer than cultures with artifacts thousands of years old. The image of Viracocha allows precise identification of the artifact's origin. It was created by the Incas 12,000 years ago. However, modern history indicates that the Inca Empire is one of the youngest civilizations. Apparently, historians either hide the truth about the ancient Incas or lack real knowledge of their culture. Doesn't that remind you of anything? The Anglo-Saxons erased Native American history to suggest America wasn't built on destroyed civilizations, but on land held by nomadic, uneducated tribes. Our Slavic knowledge underwent a similar purge. You can't trust history. Thank God artifacts help us discover the forgotten truth. Polduvai Gorge in Tanzania. One of the most important archaeological sites in the world is not a lost city or a treasure-filled tomb. It's a steep ravine in the Great Rift Valley in Tanzania. In this place, known as Olduvai Gorge, the earliest evidence of human ancestors is preserved. In the 1930s, paleoanthropologists Louis and Mary Leakey found stone tools and the 25-million-year-old proconsul skull in Olduvai Gorge. In that year, Mary Leakey discovered parts of the skull and upper teeth. They belonged to Paranthropus boisei, an early human ancestor, or hominin, who lived about 1,750,000 years ago. At that time, Paranthropus boisei was the oldest hominid ever discovered. The Leakeys and their two sons also discovered another human ancestor in Olduvai Gorge, Homo habilis. In 1968, Peter and Zuby discovered a 1.8 million-year-old Homo habilis hominid skull at this site. In 1986, Tanzanian and United States archaeologists found hundreds of bones from a female Homo habilis who lived about 1.8 million years ago. Fingerprints in the sarcophagus. In 2005, a restoration team was working on an Egyptian sarcophagus at the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge. The coffin belonged to a priest named Nespower Shefit, who died around 1000 before Christ. Surprisingly, under the lid, they found the craftsman's dirty fingerprints from 3,000 years ago. The ancient workers touched the lids inside before the varnish dried. Due to their impatience, their fingerprints remain for future generations. They were made public 11 years later, in 2016, when the unusual artifact appeared in the first major exhibition on Egyptian artists and the evolution of their styles over 4,000 years. Tutankhamun's 3,300-year-old throne was the honored seat for the ruler, always given special distinction. In any culture, he was more than the main figure. He ruled for the gods. The throne symbolizes chosenness and power. In 1922, Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered, and inside it, the throne of this young Egyptian pharaoh was found. Tutankhamun died when he was 19 years old, around 1323 before Christ. The throne is very interesting both as a regalia of the ruler, as a work of art, and as a family photo album. The tomb was not looted, so the throne has survived to this day almost untouched. The thieves only took the precious stones and some gold details. The throne is wooden and covered with gold plates. The mosaic patterns are made of glass, quartz, enamel, and ivory. So even considering that the precious stones have been removed, the throne is still beautiful and the patterns are as informative as possible. The image on the throne's back makes it an exceptional artifact. The drawings are very different from how pharaohs were usually depicted. They were supposed to be shown as powerful, standing firmly on their feet. But on Tutankhamun's throne back, he's shown in a cozy setting. The pharaoh sits relaxed as his wife anoints him with oils, and they appear to be having a pleasant family conversation. This is clearly Tutankhamun's wife, as they both wear matching ankle bracelets symbolizing marriage. We see a young and carefree boy. Researchers even claim that he is swaying. If you look closely, the legs of the throne in the image are not even on the floor. The back one is higher than the front one. One might think that this chair has nothing to do with the throne as a symbol of power. The armrests feature enameled winged serpents, and the backrest shows 4 cobras with solar discs atop their heads, a symbol of wisdom. The legs feature lion heads on top and paws below, symbolizing power. It's uncertain if the throne was crafted for the tomb or used by the pharaoh in life, especially since the image, Te, doesn't reference the afterlife. In Mexico, an ancient frieze discovered in Oaxaca in 2018 has been deciphered. It contains glyphs symbolizing themes related to superstitions and social hierarchy. Archaeologists from Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History interpreted glyphs on an ancient frieze in Oaxaca, revealing key cultural norms of the Zapotecs and Mixtecs. It is believed that the 15-meter frieze dates back to between 650 and 850 AD, was about 30 meters long. It adorned the main facade of Casa del Sur, likely a residential house, and was visible from the busy ceremonial plaza, indicating political and economic significance. Archaeologists believe that the frieze was partially destroyed by the Zapotecs, who took over this site based on the discovery of fragments of a funerary urn at this location. According to Nelly Robles Garcia, the national coordinator for archaeology at the Cultural Heritage Institution, the figurines are believed to have been offerings that were possibly made with the intention of demystifying the space. Monte Alban features vast plazas and truncated pyramids, inspired by the architectural style of elaborate tombs. It was inhabited by the Mixtecs during the Spanish colonization in the 16th century. Archaeological research in the area is ongoing. A tourist in the United States found an ancient jug. Kazakhstan v. In Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, 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 in Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, 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 in Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, 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 in Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan. From this distant period of time, Braun is no stranger to archaeological discoveries in Israel. In 2017, he joined excavations in the same area, leading to the discovery of a clean ancient scroll, olive seeds, and dates. Qumran, located in the Judean desert, is an area full of caves and became world famous when a Bedouin accidentally discovered the priceless Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947. Because of its remote location and dry air, the Judean desert contains a high concentration of well-preserved ancient artifacts. For many years, the region of the Judean desert has attracted a large number of professional archaeologists and archaeology enthusiasts, such as Braun. Archaeologists and historians believe that hundreds of Jews lived in the Qumran area in ancient times, based on the number of discovered buildings and Jewish ritual baths. Resin in the burial ground. A 27-meter-long ship was excavated near the River Deben in England, which was used as a tomb. In fact, this discovery happened 8 decades ago at Sutton Hoo, an ancient cemetery considered one of the most important burial sites in the United Kingdom. Scientists believe that the ship with precious metals and stones is the tomb of King Redwold, who died in 624 or 625 AD. The most intriguing thing was the black substance found all over the boat. It was believed to be a waterproofing agent, but thanks to better technology that became available in 2016, repeated tests showed an unexpected result. The resin-like material was a rare type of bitumen found exclusively in the Middle East. But what this bitumen was doing on the ship is unclear. Perhaps it was being exported at that time. 5 ancient tombs in Saqqara remain untouched. Egypt has revealed newly discovered decorated ancient tombs in the Pharaoh's necropolis near Cairo. The 5 tombs were discovered earlier this month and date back to the Old Kingdom, a period spanning roughly from 2700 to 2200 before Christ. Mustafa Waziri, the Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, said that Egyptian archaeologists began excavations in September. According to him, the tombs were intended for high-ranking officials, including overseers in ancient Egypt. All these 5 tombs are well painted and decorated. Excavations are still ongoing. Archaeologists plan to continue them. They believe they may find more tombs in this area. The largest Roman mosaic in the last 50 years. One of London's newest attractions, the glass skyscraper known as the Shard, apparently shares space with one of the city's oldest hidden treasures, a recently discovered, almost perfectly preserved 2,000-year-old Roman mosaic. Museum of London Archaeology. Archaeologists discovered this earlier this month during pre-construction excavations. The team thinks the well-preserved mosaic decorated a Roman dining room floor. According to a press release from Museum of London Archaeology, the find is the largest Roman mosaic discovered in London in at least 50 years. This is a rare find for the city since mosaics of this size were unusual in the crowded urban area. The original building with the mosaic is thought to have been a Roman mansio, an elite hotel with lodging, a stable, and a dining room. The size of the house and the luxurious rooms suggest that it served high-ranking officers and their guests. The mosaic has 2 panels, The larger likely dates to the late 2nd or early 3rd century. It features large, colorful flowers, bordered by bands of interwoven threads and Solomon's knots, a common ancient Roman mosaic motif shown as two ovals with loops. Researchers observed a direct parallel with the mosaic pattern in Trier, Germany, implying both were made by traveling Roman craftsmen at work in London. A chrysocolla amulet. The Egyptians took colors seriously and assigned each one its own meaning and quality. Researchers knew that green symbolized growth, harvest, and health in Egypt. It was important enough to place scarabs carved from green stone next to the hearts of mummies, but no one suspected why. Green also played an important role when it came to Egyptian children. According to ancient records and hieroglyphs, young people even wore green makeup. A recent discovery shows that Egyptian parents believed it could protect their offspring. A leather pouch containing a bright green chrysocolla amulet was found on a child's mummy. When the child died, 4,700 years ago in Egypt, malachite was the most accessible green mineral, while chrysocolla was a rare commodity available only in Sinai and the eastern Egyptian desert. A similar chrysocolla figurine depicting a boy supports the theory that a certain green mineral was used only by children. Several experts agree that the amulet found with the little one who died of malaria was incredibly intended to provide health and safety in the afterlife. A family tomb holding 20 mummies. One of the most significant discoveries of the Egyptian-Italian mission was made in 2019 when archaeologists found a tomb that had been used repeatedly over many centuries, from the Ptolemaic era to the Roman period. Like many burial structures found in this area, it turned out to have been looted. However, the scientists discovered 35 mummies and valuable artifacts, including vessels, palm wood stretchers, figurines, and cartonnage. Archaeologists from the Egyptian-Italian mission surveyed the area west of the city, near the mausoleum of Aga Khan III, which was built in 1956. At the ancient necropolis site, dating from the 6th century before Christ to the 4th century AD, scientists discovered a large tomb that had been looted in ancient times. However, it still contained 20 well-preserved mummies belonging to the Greco-Roman period. Among them, archaeologists singled out the mummy of a child, which was placed together with a cartonnage in a terracotta sarcophagus. The tomb itself consists of 4 burial chambers carved into the rock, with the entrance constructed from sandstone blocks and mud brick. According to Professor Patrizia Piancantini from the University of Milan, who led the mission from the Italian side, members of a single family were buried in this burial structure. She noted that besides the mummies, archaeologists found valuable artifacts from that era: a sacrificial table, copper necklace, inscribed stone slabs, and wooden figurines of a mythical bird. B.A. Smiling pot. Finding an ancient potter with a sense of humor is rare. When archaeologists dug up a 4,000-year-old pot, it smiled at them. In 2017, when another broken pot was discovered during the excavations near the Syrian border in Turkey that had been going on for 7 years, it seemed there was nothing unusual about it. But when the restoration team pieced the shards into a round-bellied pot, they noticed something familiar to modern people: a smiley face. Around 1,700 before Christ, someone pressed eyes and a smile into wet clay. The white vessel with a single handle, which was used for drinking sherbet, is now considered the oldest smiley face in history. The place where it was found is called Carchemish, and it once belonged to the Hittites. A rare coin depicting a slain Roman emperor. Mata Varga, an employee at the Ripple Ronai Museum in Kaposvar, and a volunteer discovered the coin. In early 2022, they excavated a Roman settlement in Somogy County, southwestern Hungary, but the exact site remains undisclosed. The rare 5.6-gram coin features Emperor Volusianus, ruler of the Roman Empire from 251 to 253 AD. Volusianus's co-ruler was Trebonianus Gallus. During their reign, the Roman Empire faced a major plague and a Persian invasion that devastated the eastern provinces. 2 years after coming to power, Gallus and Volusianus were killed by their own soldiers during the rebellion of the Moesian governor Marcus Aemilius Aemilianus, which ended Volusianus's reign. Coins bearing his image are rare. Moreover, the denomination of the coin is also rare. Archaeologists do not know who owned the coin, but since it was the only one found at the site, it was probably lost. Kapshvar, some traveler. On one side of the coin, there is a portrait of a bearded emperor with a radiate crown on his head, and on the other side, there is Libertas, the Roman goddess of freedom. The coin is now part of the numismatic collection of the Ripple-Runai Museum, which previously had only one Roman gold coin. Robus tag. A small Roba tag engraved with the inscription 1853 was discovered in Charleston, South Carolina in 2021. The square copper tag served as a kind of permit, allowing the servant to work in the city and away from his owner, who paid between $10 and $35 for the tag. Charleston was the only place in the United States where a work permit was issued, making the artifact extremely rare. The tag was discovered at the College of Charleston. This suggests that the servant lost the permit while working on the construction of the building, which was completed in 1785. Slave tags appeared in the United States in the 18th century and were used until 1865. Usually they were stamped with the date, the occupation of the slave, and a registration number. This was used as proof that the owner of the enslaved person had allowed them to work for someone else and outside the owner's estate. Tag Tsaritsa Mornid. In 1900, the Briton William Flanders Petrie, while studying the ancient necropolis of El Khayyab in Abydos, Egypt, discovered a rich tomb. The archaeologist was thrilled and inspired. Based on the scale of the burial, he decided that he had found the final resting place of a previously unknown pharaoh. But after some time, it had to be acknowledged that the occupant of this tomb was a woman named Mornid, who ruled Egypt around 2950 before Christ. I would really like to tell you how beautiful she was, how she conquered other states, had love affairs, or built great structures, but I can't, because almost nothing is known about Queen Mornid. However, she does claim the title of the very first woman in world history to have independently ruled a state. She was extraordinary. After Pharaoh Jet died, Mornid became regent for her young son, future Pharaoh Deni, serving in this role for about 10 years. When Petrie discovered the tomb, the goddess Neith was unknown, so he confused Mornid for a male pharaoh with an unusual name. In those days, Neith was seen as the patroness of princesses and queens. The name Mornid, meaning Neith's favorite, was given in honor of the goddess. Nothing is known about Mornid's parents, but it is possible that according to the tradition of Egyptian royal dynasties, she was the sister, or at least the cousin of her own husband. Marriages were arranged within families to keep power from passing to others. The queen's great-grandfather might have been Narmer, Egypt's first dynasty pharaoh. The tomb of Mornid is different from the pyramids we are used to. They built mastabas then, flat-roof structures resembling palaces with storerooms and burial chambers. For servants, officials, animals, all those who, according to the cruel custom, were sacrificed and were supposed to accompany the lady into the afterlife and serve her there. In all the chambers of Queen Mornid's mastaba, there were inhabitants, the Golden Cross, with the runes of the Kingdom of Northumbria. Near the city of Barica, on the banks of the River Tweed, a 1,000-year-old relic was discovered by amateur archaeologists. This relic was a pectoral cross made of pure gold, but the most interesting thing was that its entire surface was covered with runic symbols. By deciphering only part of the runic symbols, scientists were able to identify a name that they had not encountered before. History shows that over 1,000 years ago, the area where the cross was found belonged to the Kingdom of Northumbria, but that's not all. Scientists also suggest that there was a religious site located here as well. Amateur archaeologists examined the find. Discovered ancient objects are not immediately recognized as valuable. First, the found item needs to be thoroughly studied, and only after that can scientists recognize it as an archaeological value. Sometimes this takes years. It took about a year to confirm the Golden Cross's archaeological value. The discovery literally puzzled scientists as they thought it was made from an alloy but it turned out to be pure gold. Scientists dated it to the 8th-9th century AD. Scientists were amazed that nearly its whole surface was covered in symbols. Scientists have only deciphered some, but all spell a single word, Eodruf, a name new to science. Scientists now know the name, likely the cross's owner, but can only guess who he was. He was probably upper class, as an ordinary person likely couldn't afford such an ornament. Scientists believe this is a shortened form of the real name Eordwulf, which appears several times in historical sources. Moreover, one of the kings of Northumbria was named this way, and his fate turned out to be quite tragic. He was overthrown and later exiled from the kingdom. New traces of an ancient civilization. For several years now, scientists have been trying to solve the mystery of the ancient metropolis, which, by the way, is listed as a United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization World Heritage Site as the Burnt City. The city was founded around 3200 before Christ. Scientists know it was inhabited at least 4 times. It was rebuilt every time catastrophic fires completely destroyed the city. Like a phoenix, it rose from the ashes. The excavations carried out this year have brought archaeologists rare artifacts, with which they hope to gain new information about this mysterious city. Most archaeological missions here focus on uncovering the mystery of this repeatedly destroyed city. And most importantly, why was it repeatedly rebuilt from ruins? This year, archaeologists discovered new evidence of former settlements here. Along with the ancient building remains, many artifacts were found, some quite rare. Archaeologists have dug trenches along the ruins, hoping to uncover the site's early settlement layers. From previous excavations, scientists have already learned that the inhabitants of this city were skilled both in weaving and in craftsmanship. They created amazing decorative items, and they were also quite skilled in stone carving. Gigantia is an amazing ancient temple. On the top of the Shara Plateau on the island of Gotsu, which belongs to Malta, there is the ancient temple complex of Gigantia. Literally, this name translates as the Tower of the Gods. This complex consists of 2 temples, the southern and the northern. They are located next to each other and are surrounded by a wall made of limestone blocks. Some of the blocks are 5 meters high and weigh 50 tons. And now the most interesting part. The age of this complex is about 5,500 years. It was built at a time when there were no iron tools and they hadn't even been invented yet. The Gantija wheel is a majestic temple complex from the Neolithic era. The walls of both temples are built from limestone blocks without the use of any binding mortar. The stones simply stay in place due to their weight. Local residents believe that these temples were built by an ancient race of giants to worship their gods. Both temples have layouts similar to a rounded maple leaf. How did the Maltese build such structures? How did they move the heavy blocks? Researchers believe that they might have used rounded stones for this, similar to ball bearings. Such stones were found near the temple, but bringing the limestone to the construction site is only half the job. They also had to lift the blocks up. Did they really lift them by hand? Most likely not. Levers were used. A large recessed block at the southern temple was reportedly used for washing before entry, according to scientists. There were altars in its 5 apses, and the many animal bones found suggest sacrifices to the gods took place there. Archaeologists think the Gantija complex was dedicated to the fertility cult, as many related figurines were found inside and around the temples. Unfortunately, in 1827, Colonel John Otto Bayer, the deputy governor of the island of Gozo, gave the order to clear the monument area of debris. Soil was removed along with other trash, likely containing valuable archaeological finds that could have helped explain the mysteries of this impressive structure. A surprise from the well. This is one of the rarest and most unique gemstones in the world. Sri Lanka is one of the leading suppliers of gemstones to the world market. In 2020 alone, the island nation earned $500 million from exporting valuable minerals. Here, for example, are the oldest sapphire mines in the world, which supplied treasures even to King Solomon's treasury. And 2021 was marked for Sri Lanka by several sensational and especially valuable discoveries. one of which was found in a well in the Sapura area. It happened in the summer of 2020. While digging a well in a jeweler's yard, workers found a huge stone. The jeweler quickly ordered the find pulled from the well for inspection. After a brief look with his experienced eye, the stone weighed 510 kilograms. After a thorough inspection, it turned out that the find was a huge sapphire nugget, which the jeweler immediately reported to the authorities. It took almost a year to clean the stone from dirt and impurities and send it for examination. Only in July 2021 was the find revealed to the world, with all major media reporting on it. The total weight of the stone is 2.5 million carats. Of course, such a giant couldn't remain nameless, so it was named Serendipity, which in Russian means intuition. Gomini Zoisa of the National Gem and Jewelry Authority of Sri Lanka said this sapphire is about 400 million years old and estimated its value at around $100 million. And in September 2021, at one of the mines, also near Ratnapura, a sapphire nugget weighing 310 kilograms was found. The find was presented to the public in early December, and at the moment its value has not been announced. It will become known after certification, but the nugget has already received a name, Queen of Asia. They decoded a 14th century inscription. A 14th century inscription was found on Giresun Island, 12 kilometers from Turkey's Giresun province on the Black Sea's southeastern shore. Throughout its history, this island has been known by different names and has preserved traces of life from ancient times. Largely because of this, it has become the subject of many legends and mythological stories. For example, it is known as the island where the Amazons once lived. There is also the mythological story of how Heracles came here to find the Golden Fleece. Excavations have been ongoing here since 2009, and during this time archaeologists have made many important discoveries. Among the finds are various ceramic items, frescoes, coins, as well as skeletal remains. Ruins of temple walls, wells, and tombs have also been found here. The inscription in question was discovered on the island last year, and according to scientists, it is very significant because it provides new information about the history of both the island itself and the entire region. The inscription was discovered on a tower floor and dates to the reign of Alexios III Megas Komnenos, Emperor of Trebizond, made with goose feathers on a 30x50 centimeter terracotta slab. It states that the buildings and walls on the island were commissioned by the Honorable Maria, wife of Pinkernes Kyriakos, son of the governor of Giresun, Rustam. This name leads scholars to discuss strategic marriages between Turkmen Beys and the Demanis dynasty. The Komnenos are an ancient Byzantine aristocratic family, known in history as the Great Komnenoi. Scholars also note that the importance of the inscription lies in the fact that it is itself a unique work, written in the regional alphabet of the Empire of Trebizond. The oldest portrait of a human. Before you is apparently the oldest surviving portrait of a human on Earth. A woman with a deformed face lived in southern Czech Republic among rhinoceroses, sculptures, and ritual bonfires. And imagine she was a shaman. Yes, this is the oldest evidence that before the beginning of recorded history, there was no gender discrimination among clergy. Our Lady's unusual looks likely influenced her career. A spirit negotiator must stand out. You see, the left side of her face is different from the right, and there's something wrong with her eye. Apparently, these are the consequences of a birth injury. The Lady Shaman's sculpted portrait, dating back 27,000 years, was found at a Paleolithic settlement by a rocky hill. That's present-day South Moravia. The nearby village is Dolny Viestonic, which also gave the site its name. The climate here is blessed. Back then, during the mysterious shaman woman's era, Moravia was cold and home to reindeer, cave lions, and woolly rhinoceroses. And mammoths, of course. Behind a sturdy fence and tusks stood round huts, resembling the chums of the Ninets and Canti. Each chum had 1 to 5 neat hearths. Archaeologists discovered hundreds of ceramic lion, rhinoceros, and Paleolithic. Venus figurine remains in the ashes. Yes, friends, this is where the world's oldest ceramics were discovered. What kind of ceramics? Check out this Venus. It's a masterpiece even today. The inhabitants of the Stoyanka either moved a lot across the continent or traded with distant countries. Shells from the Mediterranean Sea were found here, even though the closest shore is over 500 kilometers away. Previously, it was believed the first human weavers appeared 5,000 to 8,000 years ago, but that's incorrect. Fine woolen fabric imprints were recently found on Dolní Věstonice ceramics. So the lady shaman wore dresses, not just mammoth hides. Mammoths were the main source of protein in her diet, but about 25% of the protein still came from freshwater fish, which was caught with nets. How do we know all this about her profession and her food? Well, she was found, this lady, under the floor of one of the huts. Years after the portrait was found, the woman, aged 36 to 45, was buried with a net in her hands. They placed 2 large shoulder blades with mysterious markings on top and covered it all with sacred red ochre. By the way, this is roughly how the peoples of the far north buried their shamans even in historical times. Yes, her skull is deformed on the left, as shown in the famous portrait. Venetian beads in Alaska. Archaeologists from the University of Alaska in Fairbanks discovered several tiny blue beads in 3 different locations in Alaska, which were made in Venice during the Renaissance. Scientists say this discovery could rewrite the history of the discovery of America. Scientists think Columbus wasn't the first European in America. Most likely it was the Vikings who saw America almost 500 years before him. However, now experts have every reason to believe that after the Vikings, other Europeans, Michael Kuntz and Robin Mills, could have visited these lands. The authors of the new study discovered glass beads in 3 different locations in the Brooks Falls area in Alaska. Inuits once lived here. Archaeologists have found beads and ornaments in the area. This discovery was unique because along with the beads, scientists also found bracelets, rings, and most notably a rope made from plant fiber. It was the rope that helped researchers conduct carbon dating and determine the age of the artifacts. The analysis showed that the items date back to the years 1397 and 1488 before Common Era. Columbus arrived in America in 1492. Charcoal found near the discoveries from this time range was also analyzed. Researchers note that these beads are most likely the earliest known European goods in America. Native Americans may have interacted with people who had visited Italy or traded Italian goods bought elsewhere. Since Venice was the European center for glass production in the 1400s, many merchants sent items from this place along the Silk Road, which connected Europe and Asia. The beads likely traveled to the Russian Far East and then to Alaska. Silver scrolls, Ketevkina. The archaeological excavation site of Ketevkinum is a complex of several rock-cut burial chambers located southwest of the old city of Jerusalem on the road to Bethlehem. In 1979, archaeologists made an important discovery at this site. They found 2 silver plates rolled up like scrolls. Inscriptions in ancient Hebrew were made on them. These scrolls are believed to have been used as amulets and date back to the 7th century, before Common Era. The texts on these amulets contain the oldest surviving quotes from the Torah, the Akambaro figurines. An archaeological find that still fuels debate in the scientific community today. Some researchers claim that the collection is an elaborate forgery, while others are convinced of its authenticity. Today, the figurines are kept in the Akambaro Museum, attracting many tourists from various countries. The collection includes small clay figurines made in the shape of animals, dinosaurs, and people. German immigrant Valdemar Julsrud collected the findings, claiming he discovered the first artifact near a mountain close to Akambaro. Then Julsrud found similar artifacts from local residents and chose to buy them. The oldest structures in the United Arab Emirates have been found. The ruins discovered by archaeologists are 500 years older than the oldest buildings previously known in the Emirates. Until now, archaeologists studying the heritage of the United Arab Emirates continue to add new chapters to the history of this land. On Gaga Island, west of Abu Dhabi, scientists discovered stone structures and artifacts made 8,500 years ago. The previous record for the earliest structures in the United Arab Emirates belong to the ruins on Marwa Island, and they are 500 years younger. In layers from 5,800 to 5,600 years ago, a pearl was found, indicating established trade and exchange. Based on these and several other discoveries, it was believed that the first settlements in this area were established during the Neolithic period with the development of maritime trade routes. An 8,500-year-old structure proves people lived here earlier. The Abu Dhabi Islands were a fertile coastline, and the emergence of trade with distant countries only strengthened their prosperity. The discovered building consists of simple round rooms with stone walls. Their full height has not been determined. Stones about 1 meter high remain today. People lived there year-round. This is evidenced by numerous artifacts, including skillfully crafted stone arrowheads that were used for hunting. The inhabitants also enjoyed the rich gifts of the sea. How long this settlement existed has not yet been determined, but even after it was abandoned, it was not forgotten. Almost 5,000 years ago, a man was buried in the ruins. This is one of the few burials from this period known on the Abu Dhabi Islands, Mangazia. That was the name of the first Russian Arctic city of the 17th century, founded in 1607 on the Taz River in Siberia. It was created primarily to establish government control over the Mangazia sea route, which connected the White Sea and the Ob region. Mangazia imported flour, bread, salt, and goods into Siberia and exported large amounts of furs. The city was wealthy, and its riches even became the stuff of legends, with Mangazia being called the Golden Boiling City. Unfortunately, the city lasted less than a century. The residents left Mangazia. This was mainly due to shifting Siberian colonization routes and depleted local fur resources. Mangazia lost appeal to its citizens, but not to archaeologists. Kushelevsky conducted the first excavations here on 1862. Excavations revealed Mangazia was divided like ancient Russian cities into the city, Kremlin, and Posad. The Madaba map is the oldest surviving map of the Holy Land, especially of Jerusalem, and is part of the mosaic floor of the Byzantine Church of St. George in Madaba, Jordan. The map was discovered during renovations in the church in 1884 and dates back to somewhere between 560 and 565 AD. Although the map originally depicted much of the Middle East from southern Syria to central Egypt, most of the mosaic map had already been destroyed by the time it was first discovered. However, the part of the map depicting Jerusalem remained intact. It features an oval-shaped fortress city with 6 gates, 21 towers, and several dozen buildings and structures. Visitors to Madaba can view the map in person, while a copy is kept at the Archaeological Institute of the University of Göttingen in Germany. An unusual feature in dinosaurs, the first fossils of the duck-billed dinosaur Ainabia odysseus were discovered by scientists in Morocco, Africa. Ainabia means foreigner in Arabic. The discovery puzzled experts since these species were previously only found in Europe. In the time of the dinosaurs, the 2 continents were separated by a deep ocean, so researchers wanted to find out how they ended up in Africa. Ainabia odysseus lived 66 million years ago at the end of the Cretaceous period. These dinosaurs fed on plants, but compared to other duck-billed relatives, they were small in size. Scientists expressed surprise at the discovery in Africa, saying it was like finding a kangaroo in Scotland. Experts analyzed the species' teeth and jawbones, concluding it was part of the duck-billed Lambeosaurini subfamily. Scientists think they had large bony crests on their heads. At first, they lived in North America, then spread to Asia and Europe, but their fossils have never been found in Africa. Researchers claim that dinosaurs couldn't reach the continent by land. According to scientists, the animal must have gotten there by water. It is believed that members of this species were good swimmers. They had strong legs and tails. In addition, their remains have been found in river deposits and sea cliffs, which suggests that they could move through water. A tooth that is 10 million years old. German scientists worry their discovery could force the world to rewrite human history. We're talking about a tooth that was found near the German commune of Eppelchaim. Previously, researchers had only found such a discovery in Ethiopia. The teeth were so similar that they spent over a year rechecking the remains dating to avoid premature conclusions. The age of the most recently discovered tooth is almost 10 million years. Among the world's oldest Buddhist temples, the stone fragments are from the 2nd century before Christ. Italian archaeologists found one of the world's oldest Buddhist temples in Barikot, Pakistan. The stone wall fragments and artifacts date to the late 2nd century before Christ. Italian specialists have been working in the Gandhara region since 1955, but major discoveries have only been made now. Barikot, where Italian scientists work today, is cited in Greek and Latin texts as Bazira or Vajrastra. This is one of the cities besieged by Alexander the Great. This place played an important role in managing all the agricultural lands of the Swat Valley, which, due to its microclimate, allows for harvesting grain or rice twice a year. For Alexander the Great, Barikot became a kind of granary that he used before continuing his campaign into India. Italian scientists discovered the ancient temple in Barikot was cylindrical, 3 meters tall, and built on an apsidal podium during the reign of the Indo-Greek king Menander III. At the same time, an even older structure had previously stood on the site where the temple was built. Archaeologists also discovered fragments of inscriptions on pottery written in the Kharosthi script, as well as several coins. Scientists think the Barikot temple has been vandalized several times over its long history, and it was finally abandoned at the beginning of the 3rd century AD when the lower city was destroyed by an earthquake. The Peruvian sea monster. Nowadays, whales are considered kind and rather harmless creatures. However, the ancient whale that roamed the waters of what is now Peru 36 million years ago hardly fits that description. The fearsome animal, which is called a sea monster, reached 17 meters in length and had razor-sharp teeth, allowing it to feed on large animals, including tuna and sharks. This discovery is notable for its excellent preservation. This animal was among the largest predators of its era. The whale's skull with long, sharp teeth was found last year in Peru's Ocucaje Desert. At that time, the Peruvian Sea was warm. Thanks to such fossils, we can reconstruct the history of the Peruvian Sea. Scientists think the skull was from Basilosaurus, an ancient cetacean whose descendants include whales, dolphins, and porpoises. Despite its name meaning royal lizard, Basilosaurus is not a reptile. However, according to scientists, the movements of its long body could really resemble those of a large snake. Scientists named the predator Okukaki, which used its strong teeth to eat tuna, sharks, and sardine schools. Researchers explained that when Basilosaur died, its skull likely sank to the seafloor, where it quickly fossilized. The first cetaceans, such as Basilosaur, evolved from land animals about 55 million years ago. By the late Eocene, from 56 to 34 million years ago, cetaceans had fully adapted to marine life. The Okukaki Desert is rich in fossils, enabling scientists to trace 42 million years of evolution. 70,000 years ago, humanity almost went extinct. Humans as a species were on the brink of extinction about 70,000 years ago, according to a recent genetic study. Scientists think there was a time when just 2,000 people survived on Earth. This means that for a fairly long period of time, humans were actually an endangered species, easy prey for disease, natural disasters, and conflicts. Had even one of these factors turned against Homo sapiens at that time, we wouldn't exist today. In addition, as a result of the same genetic experiment described in the American Journal of Human Genetics, researchers concluded that humans first left Africa around the same time, 70,000 years ago. Unlike their closest relatives, chimpanzees, all humans have almost identical DNA. Moreover, even within a single group of chimpanzees, individual members have more differences in their DNA structure than all humans do. 6 billion people currently living on Earth. According to the British Broadcasting Corporation scientists from the American Stanford University and the Russian to see what happens with Homo sapiens, then we are not with Homo sapiens of the years. Humankind was literally on the verge of extinction, and all living representatives of the human race today are descendants of a small group that survived back then. During the critical period, their number likely stayed under 2,000. The oldest family tree in the world. Analysis of ancient DNA. One of the best preserved Neolithic tombs in the United Kingdom, which is almost 6,000 years old, shows that 27 out of 35 people inside belong to 5 continuous generations of one large family. The Hazelton, North Barrow, in the Cotswold Hills in Western England is one of the best preserved Neolithic tombs in the United Kingdom. Inside, 35 bodies were found in the 1980s. It is believed that they all lived between 5,600 and 5,700 years ago, about 100 years after agriculture began in this area. A few years ago, a group of specialists extracted genetic material from these buried remains. In a recent study, scientists used this genetic data to reconstruct the various relationships among all these people. The analysis showed that most of the people buried in the grave descended from 4 women who had children with the same man. These results suggest that polygamous marriages existed in the patrilineal society of that time. Researchers think it's unlikely this male ancestor had 4 wives sequentially. He probably had several wives simultaneously. The results of this study also show that men were usually buried together with their father and brothers, which indicates patrilineal descent. In other words, those buried in later generations were connected to the first generation through their male relatives. Finally, the team identified 8 individuals who were not biological relatives of those listed in the family tree. However, 3 of them were women. Therefore, it is quite possible that they had a partner in the grave but did not have children. It is also possible that they had daughters, but they left the community as adults, which would explain their absence. Ancient tombs and a sarcophagus were found under Notre Dame. Several tombs and a lead sarcophagus were discovered in Notre Dame during the reconstruction of the cathedral after the 2019 fire. This was reported by The Guardian, citing the French Ministry of Culture. It is believed that the sarcophagus was made for a high-ranking official in the 1300s. The weight of earth and stones apparently deformed it. To look inside it, the team of experts used a mini endoscopic camera. You can spot fragments of hair tissue and a leaf pillow atop the deceased's head. This is a well-known phenomenon when religious leaders were buried. The fact that these plant elements are still inside means that the body is very well preserved. In addition to the tombs, elements of painted sculptures were also discovered. They were identified as parts of the original 13th century rood screen, an architectural element separating the altar from the nave. 1,700-year-old weapons. In Norway, a group of archaeologists announced the excavation of several caches made more than 1,700 years ago by deer hunters in Norway. The melting ice also made it possible to discover several arrowheads and some scare sticks. If you want to kill a reindeer with a bow and arrows, you need to get as close as possible. However, in the Sangrafskaret Mountains in western Norway, hunters had nowhere to hide, so they had to build a shelter. The archaeological team found 5 arrows, 3 date back to St. Petersburg, in St. Petersburg, St. Petersburg, St. Petersburg, in Hankenstadt, in St. Petersburg, St. Petersburg, in St. Petersburg, in Hankenstadt, in St. Petersburg, in St. Petersburg, in St. Petersburg, St. Petersburg, in St. Petersburg. When the melting ice allowed ancient artifacts to be discovered, in 2011 a passage was found that had been used by Vikings more than 1,000 years ago. At that time, the team came across an incredibly well-preserved woolen tunic that was worn about 1,600 years ago. In 2020, a group of archaeologists also announced the discovery of hundreds of deer antler bones and dozens of arrows in the Jotunheimen Mountains. Also in Norway, which is linked to global warming. More recently, 7 years after a ski was discovered on the Diggervarden ice, the team also came across a second ski, making it the oldest pair of skis ever found. Stone Age culture discovered in China? In the journal Nature, a group of specialists reports the discovery of remains of a Stone Age culture west of Beijing, China. About 40,000 years ago, ancient hominids in this area used ochre and made small stone tools. This site gives a rare glimpse into our ancestors' lives here at that time. The site is located in the Nihewan Basin in northern China at a depth of about 2.5 meters beneath a layer of dark olivine sediment dating from between 41 and. The team excavated animal remains, including more than 430 mammal bones, a hearth, evidence of ochre processing and use, a bone tool, and over 380 miniature lithics. These are small tools and artifacts made from chipped or ground stone. The presence of processed ochre is of particular interest to researchers. By then, humans and their relatives had been using this pigment for a long time. The evidence of processing at Siamabi includes 2 pieces of ochre with slightly different mineral compositions. The researchers explain that they found these artifacts in close proximity to each other, resting on an area of reddened sediment. They can't yet determine exactly how this pigment was used based on current data, but ochre traces may have appeared on several stone tools at the site. These tools indicate the pigment may have been added when processing hides or used as adhesive for attaching handles to stones. However, it is also possible that this ochre could have been used for symbolic purposes such as rock painting or body painting. One question remains unanswered. Which archaic hominids occupied this place 40,000 years ago? Some evidence points to Homo sapiens, although no human fossils have been found at this site. Modern human remains have been found at a younger site located about 110 kilometers away, as well as at another site in this region, the Upper Cave of Zhou. However, it is possible that Neanderthals and Denisovans were still visiting this area at that time. A drum over 5,000 years old. A chalk sculpture, 5,000 years old, discovered in East Yorkshire, has been called the most important piece of prehistoric art found in the United Kingdom in the last century. The object's purpose remains unknown, and it will soon be shown at the British Museum. Only 4 examples of its kind are known. The other 3 Folkestone drums were discovered in 1889 at the burial site of a child in North Yorkshire, about 400 kilometers from Stonehenge. All of them have since joined the British Museum's collection. Today, they are considered some of the most famous and mysterious ancient objects ever discovered in Britain. Relatively little is known about these famous Folkestone drums, but a new specimen discovered less than 30 kilometers from the village of Burton Agnes may help researchers. According to The Guardian, this new drum was unearthed in 2015 from the grave of 3 children who were buried side by side, their hands touching. The artifact, a chalk ball, and a polished bone pin were placed above the oldest child's head. The burial site is located about 380 kilometers from Stonehenge. Like the other 3, this new drum, decorated with stylized human faces and geometric patterns, was carved from local chalk. Apparently, it was a non-functional musical instrument. Like the other 3, this object is carved from a single piece of chalk and lacks an internal resonance cavity. Archaeologists say it may have been an artistic sculpture and a talisman meant to protect deceased children it accompanied. Decapitated skeletons. During excavations at a Roman settlement in Buckinghamshire, England, archaeologists discovered about 40 decapitated skeletons. Most of these people were buried in graves with their severed heads placed between their legs or at their feet. Researchers believed that they were likely executed criminals. Recently, archaeologists were able to excavate the ruins of an ancient Roman city found in Fleet Marston near Aylesbury, England, ahead of the construction of the future high-speed railway High Speed 2. The excavation provided a glimpse into Roman Britain from 2,000 years ago. Among the main discoveries Researchers highlighted a number of buildings containing evidence of residential structures, as well as others dedicated to commercial and industrial activities. The team also found more than 1,200 coins, as well as pottery, tableware, dice, bells, and several lead weights. These findings indicate that this area was a zone of trade and commerce. Some of the expanded road may have been used for parking carts and market stalls. According to one of the reports, besides having many residents, the city was probably an important stop for travelers and other soldiers on their way to the garrison at Volchester and back. Finally, researchers came across a late Roman cemetery containing more than 425 burials, the largest known in Buckinghamshire. Among the buried, several people were also decapitated, about 10% of the burials, with their heads placed between their legs. Decapitated burials are not unknown in Roman culture, especially in Roman Britain, but they remain rare. Moreover, the number of people involved in this case is unusually large. But why were they beheaded? Beheading was one of 4 main execution methods allowed by Roman law and was commonly used in Roman Britain. Supporting this hypothesis is the fact that some of these people appear to have been struck from behind with a very sharp blade while kneeling. One of the most surprising details is that these graves are no different from the others. These people are buried with typical burial furniture, sometimes in coffins and among other bodies in cemeteries. It is assumed that the relatives of the victims probably wanted to bury the head next to the rest of the body so that the soul would descend into the underworld and not linger near the corpse, haunting the living. On the other hand, they might also have feared that the corpse could reassemble itself and leave the grave, which explains why the head was placed far from the neck. 18,000 fragments of pottery demonstrating the everyday life of ancient Egypt. Archaeologists recently discovered a collection of pottery shards at the site of Athribis, an ancient Egyptian city located about 200 kilometers north of Luxor. Many believe these rough notebooks once belonged to an ancient school. There hasn't been a discovery like this since the early 1900s in the settlement of Deir el-Medina, where numerous fragments were found. Pottery shards, or ostraca, discovered in Athribis temple, offer insights into daily life in ancient Egypt around 2,000 years ago. Archaeologists also found most of the vessel remains, which likely belonged to an ancient school. More accessible than papyrus, ostraca were widely used in ancient times for recording shopping lists, trade transactions, or for teaching school children writing and drawing. The Egyptians used a hollow reed or a stick with ink. Such a large number of shards had only been found once before. In the early 1900s, the English archaeologist Sir Flinders Petrie was the first to excavate the temple, and then the Egyptian Antiquities Organization from 1981 to 1997. However, the texts that were found were mostly about medicine and medical practice, while these ostraca tell about the everyday life of the Egyptians. Overall, they consist of various lists of food items or everyday objects, as well as lines that were written repeatedly, like what a student might do as punishment. Researchers say most ostraca are linked to schools. There are lists of months, numbers, arithmetic problems, grammar exercises, and a bird alphabet. Each letter matched a bird whose name began with it. As for writing, various languages were found, including hieroglyphs, Greek, Arabic, and Coptic, which indicates the city's multicultural history. The discovery doesn't stop there. Archaeologists also found pictographic ostraca. These shards depict various figures, including animals such as scorpions and swallows, people, gods from a nearby temple, and even geometric shapes. Athribis is an ancient city about 200 kilometers north of Luxor. The archaeological site, covering 30 hectares, has not yet been fully excavated. It consists of a temple complex, a settlement, a necropolis, and quarries. The temple complex has 2 temples, with one still buried beneath meters of sand. A headless horse and its rider. The remains of a man buried 1,400 years ago next to a headless horse were discovered at an ancient cemetery in the southern German city of Knittlingen. Archaeologists suggest that sacrificing a horse to be buried with its owner was a symbol of great wealth and power. The headless horse lies on its left side near the warrior's body, likely its owner, surrounded by rare weapons and jewelry. The discovery was made a few weeks ago at an old cemetery in Knittlingen, southern Germany. The State Office for Monument Preservation of the Stuttgart Regional Council has been excavating there since August 2021. According to the analyses carried out, the man and his horse were buried at a time when the Merovingian dynasty flourished in the region, ruling over a vast territory in what is now France and Central Europe. One of the questions that clearly troubles archaeologists is the beheading of the horse. Why was its head cut off? Some have tried to establish a connection with the burial of horses in a medieval village. In that year, 35 human burials and 3 horse skeletons dating to the same period were found. The 3 horses lay on their left sides facing south to north with heads to the right. The horse's head hasn't been found. Why did early medieval Merovingians bury fallen warriors with their horses? Archaeologists agree that burying a sacrificed horse with its owner symbolized great wealth and power. He likely served the dynasty's kings during his life. The decapitated horse skeleton beside the warrior is one of 110 graves found at the site. Other graves contain the remains of people from about the same period. Some of them were found with rich grave goods. For example, a woman was buried with a gold brooch, while some men were laid to rest with swords, spears, shields, and arrowheads. Researchers will keep studying this site. Further anthropological work will be done with the bones and teeth of this writer to learn more about his age and health at the time of death, as well as the causes of his death. The world's oldest drinking straws. According to a group of experts, 8 long gold and silver tubes, about 5,500 years old, discovered in Russia in the late 1980s, may be the oldest drinking straws in the world. They were probably used for sipping beer. Previously, researchers thought they were scepters. In 1987, during the excavation of burial mounds near Maykop, Russia, archaeologist Nikolai Veselovsky found 8 thin-walled tubes over a meter long with narrow perforated tips, while analyzing 3 compartments with human remains. They were all placed to the right of the high-ranking individual buried in ornate clothing. 4 of these tubes also featured a small gold or silver bull figurine. These items, which are about 5,500 years old, were eventually transferred to the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, where they remain to this day. Experts had previously suggested that the tubes might have been used to support a canopy used in the burial process, or that they were scepters. A group of experts from Russia now suggests a different use. These tubes were actually straws for sipping a beverage, probably beer, from a communal jar. A large container found near the local site could hold 7 pints for 8 people. Researchers confirmed their hypothesis by finding barley granules, a reed phytolith, and linden pollen inside a straw. The Maykop people of the Bronze Age likely consumed fermented barley. This practice is over 13,000 years old, and large-scale beer brewing began to appear in Asia during the 5th and 4th millennia before Common Era. In addition, it's important to note that the tips of these straws were equipped with metal strainers. The authors say these structures likely filtered out impurities. At that time, beer was thicker and even contained sediment. They closely resemble those on Sumerian drinking straws. The ancient Sumerians in the 3rd millennium before Christ drank beer from communal vessels. Finally, even now in Siberia, the remains of the man and his scale armor. Around 2,500 years ago, a man from northwestern China was buried wearing armor crafted from over 5,000 leather scales. This type of artificially made military clothing is very rarely found in historical records. Anthropologists report a remarkable find from excavations at Yanghai, an ancient cemetery near Turfan by the Taklamakan Desert. Since 2003, researchers have studied over 500 burials, revealing a settlement that lasted nearly 1,400 years from the early 12th century before Christ. In one of these burials were the remains of a man about 30 years old, buried with several artifacts, including a scale armor. This is a very rare find. Another such armor was discovered in the ancient Egyptian tomb of King Tutankhamun, dating back to the 14th century before Christ. A well-preserved specimen at the Metropolitan Museum in New York dates from the 8th to 3rd centuries before Christ. The research team calls it bionic armor because it is inspired by nature. The armor resembles a kind of vest that could be put on quickly. It is a versatile defensive garment, lightweight and very effective for army soldiers. The armor's reconstruction showed 5,444 small and 140 large leather scales, all arranged in horizontal rows and linked by leather laces through slits. Radiocarbon analysis of a thorn inside the armor shows it was worn since 786 before Christ until 543 before Christ, when it likely weighed around 5 kilograms. The investigator said this scale armor was sometimes used to protect charioteers, chariots, and other Western Asian riders. The armor mostly shielded the front torso, thigh, left side, and lower back. Its protection on the left side allowed the wearer to easily manipulate the right hand. The width and height could also be adjusted. However, it seems it wasn't made in China. The British Museum says this is likely Neo-Assyrian military equipment from the 7th century before Christ. Some key questions remain. Was the armor's wearer a local warrior serving the Assyrians, or did he capture it from another? Was he an Assyrian or a North Caucasus native who ended up in Turfan? Leave your comments below the video and share it with your friends. I'll reply to all kind comments. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, everyone.